What's up? It's Tom. Today I want to talk about the Dodgers, kind of a team that's on everybody's mind right now, and I think this is a conversation worth having for all 30 fan bases across baseball. Talk about the Dodgers, and are they bad for baseball? What's going on here? They're scooping up everybody, defending World Series champions. Roki Sasaki kind of falls in their lap. They also went out and signed Tanner Scott. Just over the weekend here, the top bullpen arm available in the offseason. So it's kind of a conversation, the rich getting richer. Let's talk about this. First off, I want to just make it clear that I can't be mad at these players, man. You look at the situation, players are going to be motivated to go to a successful, well-run organization. And right now, the Dodgers are the team that tops that list. They not only are they spending a lot of money and investing in their team, this is also a well-run organization. They know how to help players improve. They make smart investments. It seems like there's a lot worse places you could end up than LA for sure. And look at what they've done this offseason. They extended Tommy Edman. They signed Blake Snell. They brought back Blake Trinan, who was a free agent. They signed Michael Conforto. They brought back Teoscar Hernandez, who was a free agent. They landed Roki Sasaki. I don't want to get into that too deeply. I made my pitches for him on the Twins, tongue-in-cheek on a lot of those. We were having fun. I didn't think we were a real strong destination, but still there's apparently an investigation going on whether the Dodgers were inappropriate in the timing of which they were trying to get him attracted to the Dodgers. I don't want to dive deep into that, but there's an interesting situation that and every team in baseball financially could have afforded Roki Sasaki. So that's one that kind of stings. The Dodgers really didn't use anything that other teams didn't have at their, other teams, if they wanted to attract a Roki Sasaki, they could have. They just had to be a well-run organization. Maybe some of the location things helped in terms of him traveling to Japan and back. That certainly could have helped them, but again, I don't want to get too deep into that one. And then they turn around and land Tanner Scott. Basically before the Roki Sasaki news even settles, they announced they signed Tanner Scott, the best bullpen arm on the market, on the free agent market, and one of the best left-handed relievers in all of baseball, a huge get for that team. But I can't be mad at these players for wanting to go to LA. Again, it's a team that just won the World Series. They've been World Series contenders for years and years and years now, and these guys are getting paid. So the only guy that maybe is taking any kind of a discount to go there was Roki Sasaki, and he had a unique situation, we'll put it that way. And you know what? I can't be mad at the Dodgers either as an organization, as a team. Let's be real. Especially as Twins fans, and I think every other kind of middle market or central-based team of a fan, we all have to be honest with ourselves. And even if we don't like, this coastal elite team going out there and scooping up all these free agents, it's just, the rich getting richer. We got to be real, and we all want our teams to do this. If this was our team doing this stuff, it's not like we would be like, oh, shucks, we probably should give some of these players back, right? No, absolutely not. This is exactly how we want our teams to operate. And it's not as if the Dodgers, as far as, that I've seen, it's not as if they've broken any rules. I understand they've done some kind of out-of-the-box things with deferred money, and with Ohtani in particular. We'll see what becomes of this Sasaki investigation. I'm guessing that it's going to determine that they were within the rules there. I don't know, though. But, I'm not saying you have to like it, but, they are operating within the rules, and I think it's only fair to point that out and say all of us want our team to do that. There is not a salary cap, so the Dodgers can keep spending, but it's not as if there's some kind of unlimited spending they can do without any consequence. They actually spent over $100 million in luxury tax they had to pay for this past season, which was more than a handful of teams spent just on their payroll. This is a number beyond their payroll. So, it's not as if the Dodgers continuing to spend money in the Scott situation. Roki Sasaki's a little bit of a different situation because he's going to be paid the minimum this upcoming season. That's why that was such a gem to kind of land in their lap. But signing Tanner Scott, that's going to go against the luxury tax. They're going to end up paying some luxury tax on top of that. So the Dodgers actually are funding parts of some other team's payroll. I think that's a situation that's going to make it difficult for the MLB, the other owners, the other teams, to look at this and say this is a problem when, as the Dodgers keep spending money, some of that money comes back into the pockets of lower income teams. So what is there to be mad at? I'm not saying there's nothing to be mad at. We can be mad that there is such inequity in baseball. And I want to stress, too, I'm going to throw out some potential solutions, but I want to stress, two things. Number one, I'm not like an economist or something, an economic major, an econ, a money dude. So, some of these things that I throw out, maybe there's holes in that plan that wouldn't work out. And the second point I want to make is it's not our job as fans. We are allowed to say we don't like this without having to then present a perfect solution to the problem. That's the league. That's up to those guys to figure out. So, but I want to kind of look at this from the whole situation and talk about money in baseball in general. MLB teams share the national TV revenue and 48% of their local TV revenue, meaning that every team in the league gets about $200 million to start. That's before a pitch is thrown. Every team in the league gets around $200 million. In addition to that, about $145 million of that luxury tax that was paid by all the teams is distributed to teams that are revenue sharing. The other kind of a little bit less or a little bit more than half of that goes to player retirement funds, the luxury tax. That's how teams fund the league, basically funds that pool as well. So, it is important to keep in mind, you hear, teams started about $200 million, and you say, well, not that many teams spend that in payroll. Should keep in mind that, all these teams have expenses beyond just payroll. They're so not, they don't reveal a whole lot about those expenses. So there's not a lot of transparency going on. So like travel and, there's so many things. So unfortunately, we can't really say for certain what that is, but keep that in mind. But let's just say, again, at the bottom line there, these low payroll teams aren't exactly hurting for money. We don't know the specifics. We don't know the exact numbers. But I would imagine every single owner in baseball is pretty happy financially with their situation, or else there'd be more teams sold more often. If they weren't. They can get out at any time. No one's forcing these guys to own MLB teams. Keep that in mind. So, a possible solution that seems to make sense on its surface is, hey, why not a salary cap? Other leagues do this. The Dodgers are spending way more money than everybody else. If we put a salary cap in, that would solve the problem, right? Maybe that would solve the problem. I understand why that's a talking point that's being thrown out, but number one, it would be bad for the players, and I don't think that's good. It's not their fault. This financial situation is what it is, and it doesn't feel like it would create much more competitive balance. It should help with that, but it shouldn't create much more. I think, personally, and again, this is where those things you keep in mind that I'm no expert on the economics of baseball, but I think a salary floor would be a better option because, yes, the Dodgers are spending more. Yes, the Mets are spending more. There are teams spending a lot more than other teams, but there are also a good number of teams that are kind of, honestly, pathetically low. And, 5 teams were below $100 million last year for their payroll. And implementing a $100 million floor would have resulted in a combined $70 million more of spending from those teams. So that's good for the players. That's good for competitive balance. So what would that impact? How does that look like? In addition to being more active in free agency by these teams that are currently under $100 million, it's likely lower spending teams might be more aggressive with trying to extend their good young players as well. So, for example, if a floor had been placed, the Marlins, maybe they would not have traded Jazz Chisholm and Tanner Scott at this most recent deadline. Maybe they would have tried to extend those guys. You never know if the players just kind of want to move on or not, but there's a situation where we could envision having even just this very modest floor of $100 million salary floor that Tanner Scott doesn't reach free agency and isn't a Dodger right now. So that's kind of a concrete example of how this might impact the baseball market, essentially. If there's fewer players potentially reaching free agency and more money more teams being competitive in free agency, maybe you don't get that, super teams being built. There would also be fewer trades mainly motivated by shedding salary. Those 2 guys we mentioned, Chisholm and Tanner Scott, have value beyond what they were being paid. Of course, Scott being an impending free agent, there was some motivation there. But sometimes teams just trade guys because they're trying to move salary. And Nolan Arenado is an example right now that the Cardinals are trying to push him. Obviously, he's not prime Nolan Arenado anymore, but it's starting to feel like the Cardinals are just going to basically give him away. And we've seen that from other teams as well. So that would sort of eliminate that. It's like, well, we're already having to spend. We're being forced to spend $100 million on our baseball team. Oh, God. What an awful thing. Again, if any owners really hear that and take big issue, those owners that aren't consistently spending in the $100 million range, just sell your team. Simple problem. You can sell your team, get like $1 billion by selling your team. We're not going to say boo-hoo, you have to spend some more money than you're used to. And then once the salary floor is implemented, you could always kind of accelerate it again, have it go up a little bit year after year to try to kind of get more balance and motivate these teams. If there's this much in revenue sharing, why not? If you're sharing this much money, there should be an expectation of how much owners are willing to spend. Reasons for optimism, though. It is what it is. Nothing's going to change too soon. Even these ideas we have, Dodgers are spending a ton of money. They're already great. Again, defending World Series champions. But it's pretty hard to outright dominate in Major League Baseball. This is a game in which things are so tight. They play 162 games. And things end up pretty tight if you really break it down and think about it. Yes, this is tough sell after the Dodgers and Yankees both had the best records in their leagues and went to the World Series, two of the highest playing teams in baseball. But if we zoom out, there's a whole lot more going on outside of 2024. But even just looking at 2024, the Dodgers only won 98 games. I realized that was ridiculous to say as it was coming out of my mouth. Only 98 games. But with their talent, that is only. That's such a talented team. It's easy to, you would have easily, could have envisioned them winning 100 games. They didn't quite get there. That's only 12 games more than the Tigers, which a 12-game gap in the standings is significant, but the Tigers spent less than $100 million. The Dodgers spent almost 2.5 times more than the Tigers, and it only resulted in 12 more wins for them. But if we look beyond 2024, that's when really and we don't have to look that far. It's not like we're looking back decades or getting out of this current economical standpoint. If you look at 2023, the Mets had, I think, a record payroll of $334 million. I don't think anybody's had higher than that up until now. Didn't even have a winning record. The highest payroll in baseball by a ton, and they did not even have a winning record. So sometimes, again, credit to the Dodgers. They do a lot of other things well just beyond spending. You can't just spend and have a great baseball team. That's just not the way it works. It's a team game. Guys take turns, essentially. Hitters, you go through 1 through 9. Pitchers, you can't throw that often. It's kind of a handy thing almost that pitchers can't log that many innings because it creates a lot more disparity. 3 other NL teams had payrolls in excess of $200 million that year, and another was just shy. The Braves were just under $200 million. So that's 5 teams basically in excess of $200 million. And despite all that big money, it was the Diamondbacks who ranked 19th in the league in payroll, who represented the National League in the World Series that year. Some of that is due to the unpredictability of the new expanded playoffs. It is kind of easier to bounce teams out. These days, it's harder to make it through, but that's part of the picture. We have to take that into account. Back in 2021, that Braves team, man, I really enjoyed that run of theirs. They were 13th in opening day payroll. They lost their best player. Ronald Acuna was hurt. They had a very thin rotation. They basically had a 3-man rotation entering the postseason, and it wasn't that impressive. It was Max Fried, Charlie Morton, and Ian Anderson. That same year, the Giants won 107 games. The Dodgers won 106 games, and yet the Braves were the World Series champions. Along the way, they won an NLCS game started by Jesse Chavez, a reliever, and a World Series game started by Dylan Lee, a reliever. They basically had a 3-man rotation. They were doing some openers with Kyle Wright, pitching some bulk appearances. It was insane. It was an insane run with this team that was really down, again, without Ronald Acuna, their best player. It just kind of shows that there's more to baseball than payroll. There's more to baseball than superstars. We have these really nice examples, very recent. Again, just the season prior to last year, 2023, with the Diamondbacks making it all the way to the World Series, despite these juggernaut teams that in their league. They didn't win. They lost to the Rangers. Also, keep in mind, a lot of the money the Rangers spent was kind of for naught, as Max Scherzer was very limited in the postseason, and Jacob deGrom didn't pitch at all in the postseason. The Rangers did win the World Series, but it's not as if all the money they spent, there was other guys, Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, they spent money and they got good contributions from those guys, but it's not like there was a direct correlation between every dollar they spent and them winning the World Series. And then, if you want to boo-hoo the Diamondback story and say, well, they didn't win the trophy, we can look at the the Braves, the 2021 Braves, this team that did spend money, but they had a lot going against them. And a lot of imperfections heading into October, and they had balls. That's what that team, Travis d'Arnaud and Tyler Matzek, that was kind of their rallying point, was they just had big balls, that Braves team. I loved that team. That was so much fun. So, we're not going to fix baseball right now. The economics of baseball, it is what it is. A lot of us, Twins fans included, but a lot of other fans across the league would really like to see some more competitiveness across the board. We would like to feel like we have more hope entering. But unfortunately, and it's not our fault, but unfortunately, a lot of these owners are not as invested as an owner like the Dodgers. And it's easy to be mad at the situation and think that baseball is broken. And I think there's a good argument for that. But I can't be mad at the players. I can't be mad at the Dodgers for pushing things this far. We just need to figure out how to get things more even. How do you motivate that? And the hard part is going to be, it's not as if the commissioner's office can just implement things. The commissioner basically works for the 30 owners, and the 30 owners dictate what's going to go on. So how are you going to convince, maybe these bottom 10 or even bottom 15 maybe owners who are collecting all this money and things are working out just fine for them financially? How are you going to convince them to potentially rake in less money every year in order to invest more on their teams? That's a tricky. I don't know the answer to that, to be completely honest. That's the answer that somebody's got to figure out, and I don't know the answer to that. But we'll keep on hoping that just the game itself has enough randomness and unpredictability that all this money spent isn't going to determine things. So, and I think we do need to keep in mind, it's not like the 2024 Dodgers won the World Series only because they spent the most money or whatever. They're also a smart team. They're also a well-run team. So it's not just the money that does that.